Will you allow the American government to have CIA here in Pakistan to conduct cross-border counter-terrorism missions against Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or the Taliban?
Absolutely not. There's no way we're going to
Seriously?
allow any bases, any sort of action from Pakistani territory into Afghanistan. Absolutely not.
Now, I don't have a political YouTube channel, but this is a big, uh, what you call it, news from Pakistan, and I was very proud. I was proud to hear a leader of Pakistan um, say no to the bases in Pakistan. And I was like, I'm not the only one. There are a lot of reporters reporting this news. This is yet to be released interview by HBO. I think it's going to be on Monday. That's what they're saying. But yeah, this is an interview asking Pakistan if Pakistan will allow US to have a base in Pakistan so they can do anti-terrorism attacks in Afghanistan from Pakistan. And Pakistan's stance on this one is very clear. They will not allow their soil to be used against any other country. And they have a right to do that. But they couldn't say no in 2001 after 9/11. And there was tremendous pressure on Pakistani leader Pervez Musharraf, or dictator, at that time. And the threat was that if Pakistan did not cooperate with US at that time, they will be moved to Stone Age, which means literally a nuclear attack. And that is a big threat. At that moment, Pakistan had no choice, so they accepted, and the country paid a tremendous price for its war on terrorism. The thing is, when Pakistan took action against Afghanistan, the Taliban, or certain faction of Taliban that were anti-Pakistan, those were called Pakistani Taliban, and they killed a lot of, they did a lot of terrorism activities against Pakistan. So indirect consequence of helping war on terrorism was that Pakistan became a frontline state for that war. Instead of US paying the price, it was Pakistan paying the price for that involvement. And there's a deep remorse against the leader at that time, who was an army general, and he was very smart, and he was cornered to accept that position because there was no other choice, and Pakistan did not have anybody behind at the time. Pakistan was isolated, and everybody knows how bad this war was. 20 years in making, and they want to do it again through Pakistani soil by attacking those Taliban, and then they will retaliate against Pakistan, not against US, because US is too far away. So by Pakistan allowing the raid through its soil, Pakistan will be the target, and that is really bad for Pakistan. And that's where national interests of Pakistan are not aligned with US, in that sense that Pakistan wants peaceful solution and US wants still a military solution, which is not a solution. 20 years of military action achieved nothing. Okay, Taliban is still there, terrorism is still there, and then they want to put Pakistan in the front line for war on terrorism still. And you have to understand that a country for 20 years paid heavy price for involvement in on terrorism, and they still are asking for more to do. Okay, there's no obligation, and the only reason Pakistan can do it is because of a strong leader that has spine to say no to US. There are very few leaders who have directly said what he said. And there was a lot of news from opposition saying that Pakistan accepted the US request, and they're going to allow US to have drone bases. Basically, they're going to use drone from Pakistani soils to attack on whatever the mission would be. But it won't be... it's kind of like letting somebody use your shoulder to fire a bullet on somebody else. Okay, you can't do that, and that is a big no-no. But Pakistan 20 years ago had no backing. The situation was totally different, but now everybody in Pakistan is on the same chapter about this subject. It is in the interest of national security of Pakistan to not let any other country use its bases to attack another country, because that puts Pakistan in direct conflict with Taliban. And if Taliban said they will attack anybody who and they have the right to do that. Talibans are basically leading the Pashtuns of Afghanistan, who are the majority. So under a democratic system in Afghanistan, they are part of the politics. But the current government of Afghanistan does not allow them to be part of the government. Okay, and if there is no what you call it, what's the word for it? If there's no combined government base representing all parties in Afghanistan, right now what is happening is the same thing that happened in Iraq. A minority, Saddam Hussein's government, who was a military dictator, who was literally minority Sunni, was ruling the Iraq, which was majority Shia. And that doesn't work in a democratic system. It only works as a dictator. So minority cannot rule majority. Nowhere it's possible. But so the thing is, it has to be part of the government for a peaceful solution, because if they are taken out of the the government in Afghanistan is basically run by the minority, which was really, before the 2001, was really in very small part of controlling the Afghanistan. They were like they really were done at that time. They had no control, so they were such a minority, and they are also because of that reason, the Taliban, which are the majority, they are supporting a peace initiative that U.S. agreed to, but the Afghan government doesn't agree to that. So the thing is, this is not going to stop till they realize. And Afghanistan has always been a war-torn country. I mean, they always, if nobody else from our side fights, they fight within themselves. And that's why the Taliban were created to unite everybody. Because the problem is with tribal system is that there's no common leader. Everybody wants to rule. Okay, and they are really not. I mean, they're 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 really not, because of the system, and their literacy is so low that the only thing they know is how to fight. And if there are not going to be any peace in Afghanistan, majority of the educated people have already left the country. Uh, I mean, people who had money, resources, they're out. The only people remaining, kind of like in Iran, they're like, but Iran is still much better position than Afghanistan. Afghanistan is really, really war torn country, and it's been in war. I mean, ever since I was born. Um, there are there was a, I believe, Shah, but he was even having trouble controlling the country because it's such a divided country. Um See, that's Pakistan already knows that, and if the people in Afghanistan don't want any outside force, and they don't want anybody else using their country to attack um, Afghanistan, then that's a no-no. But yeah, I mean, look at this interview. We'll put this interview. I think I should be putting it in the front of this video. So if anybody is not familiar with Afghan politics, and right now, it's really, see, all this time, Afghan Talibans. I mean, Talibans are divided into two factions. There's Afghan Talibans and there are Pakistani Taliban. The Afghani Talibans were uh, against attacking inside Pakistan or the army or anything else. But the Pakistani Talibans were basically the bad guys who were attacking schools, like military schools. They were like attacking all kind of institutions. They were literally against Pakistanis' involvement in this war, and they were like attacking the army. So army paid a heavy price, and they were attacking even kids, school. Like they're trying to taking revenge because they couldn't attack the army directly. They were taking it on the school. Like they literally went into the school and shot the kids. I don't know if you heard about this story, but you should look into it. But the problem with all this thing is when a country is a frontline, becomes a frontline, or forced to become a frontline state on any war, then their economy tanks. Okay, Pakistan paid heavy price for their involvement. Their tourism industry. Nobody wanted to visit Pakistan. There was a lot of other factors. There were a lot of issues. Yes, U.S. provided support fund, coalition fund for helping in Afghan war, but that became a big issue because it wasn't in for it didn't cover the losses the economy faced because of this war. So Pakistan is actually finally taking steps to protect itself. Okay, like every country. Like if you have two countries involved, both countries have their self-interest first. Like in U.S., for example, U.S. will not ignore if any other country asks U.S. to do something. They will look at their self-interest first. Is it good for the people of that country? If that doesn't if that decision hurts U.S. or citizens of U.S., then U.S. will say no to any other. Even if Canada asks U.S. to do something, and that doesn't serve U.S. interests, U.S. will say no. So generally third world countries like Pakistan don't, they rely so heavily on IMF and um, aid and all that stuff that they really don't have the leaders that can say no, like this leader said, which is a big deal. So yeah, you should know the whole background about this before how big this statement is. Like if you go to the Middle East, like they have a lot of money, but they don't have the military over there, and because they rely on U.S. Um, defense support, like all the weaponry and all the stuff, they can't say like this third world country, like the poor country of Pakistan leader, he said, and even European countries, like there's not many countries, like even when Putin talks, he's like Chinese leaders, all those leaders, um, they try to avoid direct confrontation. But Pakistan was pushed to, like, why would you send a reporter from US to Pakistan to ask this question with Pakistani leader? I mean, this is how, because Pakistan was saying no and no and no, so they put it in an interview in this. Like, I mean, it's hard to believe this is not does not have some kind of government backing in the back. So, but anyway, I digressed. I just was very happy to hear a leader actually say what's good for Pakistan. See, and I like leaders like that. I mean, I don't know which country wouldn't like leaders like that. So, you know, even though I don't live in Pakistan anymore, I live in US, but it doesn't matter. If a Canadian leader takes a stand and says something for the people of Canada against anybody, okay, then it's basically creates respect for that leader. So here you go for the interview. I hope you enjoyed it and watched this. It's not a full interview, it's just a clip, but I think the interview will be released on Monday, but you're gonna have to watch that if you want to Google it. But yeah, I was very, very impressed. Good job, Imran Khan.